Hello, my name is Dr. Linda Gorman, and I'm a neuroscientist. Neuroscience, that's a really big word, but a neuroscientist is just a person who knows a lot about the brain. And I'm here today to talk to you about how you can make your brain healthy to help it feel good. It's really easy and anyone can do it. I love to talk about brain health because it's spectacular. And spectacular means great. When your brain is spectacular, you're a happy, healthy person. Now, to spell spectacular, you need an SPEC. And to keep your brain healthy, you also need an SPEC. The first thing to help your brain stay healthy is loving yourself and loving other people. That's being social. That's the S. And being social means you love yourself and you're nice to yourself. It also means that you like and are nice to other people. The second thing that keeps your brain healthy is taking care of your body. That's being physical, which is the P. Being physical means you move your body, you eat to get energy, and you sleep to rest. The third thing to help keep your brain stay healthy is knowing how and why you feel your emotions. That's the E. There are lots of different emotions. Being happy, sad, surprised, disgusted, and mad, those are just some of the emotions that we can feel and experience. Knowing that we have different emotions and that we can control them is very important to making our brain healthy. And then the fourth thing you can do to make your brain healthy is think, and not just when you're in school. Cognition. That's the C, and it's a big word that means being able to think. Inside your head, your brain thinks all the time. So let's see how you can keep your brain healthy. In this story, which is called A Spectacular Trip to the Zoo, we're going to see how our brains are kind of like a zoo. A zoo is made up of different parts, and so is your brain. In the different parts of the zoo, there are different kinds of animals that do different things. Same with your brain. There are different parts of your brain, and those different parts do different things. So let's take a trip and see how our brain can be like a zoo. Have you ever been to a zoo? In a zoo, there are lots of different animals. There are kangaroos, there are birds, there are elephants, cheetahs, giraffes, there are monkeys and gorillas and polar bears and penguins. Each of these animals behave very differently and live in different habitats, but they're all together in the zoo. Now let's think about our brain. What are some of the things that you think your brain helps you to do? Well, our brain lets us talk to each other and make new friends. Our brain helps us to move our bodies in lots of ways. Our brain helps us to feel happy, feel sad, and lots of other emotions. Our brain helps us to think and solve puzzles. With all of these different jobs, your brain needs to have different parts to be able to do all these different things. This is one way that your brain is like a zoo. So today, we're just not taking a trip to any zoo. We're taking a trip to the brain zoo. And the brain zoo, just like at a regular zoo, has many exhibits. But we're just going to visit 4 of them today. At each stop during our trip through the brain zoo, we're going to learn about a part of the brain that helps us do awesome things, like make new friends, or move our bodies, or feel happy, and even solve puzzles. And we'll make sure to see some cool animals along the way. So, who's ready to go to the brain zoo? Our first stop at the Brain Zoo is the Friendship Rainforest. The Friendship Rainforest is in the social part of our brain. Here in the Friendship Rainforest, we're going to learn about how important it is to make new friends that support you and help you. What do you like to do with your friends to have fun? Okay, let's think. What do we like to do with our friends to have fun? Well, we can play together at recess. We can get together and talk and just have fun and eat lunch. These are things that sound like fun. You can do a lot of things with your friends, like talk to them and dance with them and even exercise with them. Having good friends can help us feel like we're not alone. Our friends make us feel supported. When we have our friends that support us and accept us for who we are, that makes us feel good all over. And it makes us feel more confident. Importantly, confidence helps our brains stay healthy and happy, and it makes our brains unique. Now, what type of animal do you think belongs in the friendship forest? That's right. There are lots of different types of animals that are very social and are good at making friends. But probably the most social animal at the zoo is one of these, birds. Look at all the different kinds of birds you can find in the friendship rainforest. Who can tell me how birds communicate with each other? Exactly. Birds use different songs and calls to identify and talk to each other. Because we always hear birds singing and chirping, we know that birds are very social and love to make friends. That's why they fit in so well in the friendship rainforest. The friendship rainforest is extremely important, and so is your social health. Having friends that are supportive and make you feel confident will prevent you from feeling alone if you're feeling sad or down. Friends help you create a social support system that will help you through hard times. For that reason, friendships can help our brains stay healthy. Now that we've learned about our social brain, it's time to move on to the next stop in our trip around the brain zoo. Our next stop is the movement safari. The movement safari is in the physical part of our brain. Everything in the movement safari is about how we move our bodies and how that strengthens our brain. What do you do to move your body? Well, there are lots of things that you can do. You can dance or play sports, go for walks, go to the gym. You can play tag at recess. All of these are great ways to move your body. Sports, dancing, and gym classes are great ways to get physical activity. But even just going for a walk with your family or a bike ride, both of those are great ways to move your body too. Even though when you exercise, you're building your muscles, physical activity also helps to strengthen your brain. When you move your body, your brain releases these special chemicals. They're called endorphins that make your brain stronger. We need our brains to be strong, so if we get stuck in a difficult situation, our brain will help us to be smart and successful and help us through that difficult time. I wonder what animals we'll see on our visit to the movement safari. Can anyone think of any animals that are very strong or very fast? What about this animal? Does anyone know the name of this speedy animal? That's right, it's a cheetah. Cheetahs can run as fast as 80 miles an hour. That's about as fast as cars drive on the highway. While none of us can run quite as fast as a cheetah, we can take after the cheetah's behavior and make sure that we're moving our bodies. The movement safari is an important part of the brain zoo because moving our bodies will help our brains to be strong and healthy. Being physically active and making sure to move our bodies at least 30 minutes every single day will not only let us grow big, strong muscles, but we'll also have big, strong brains. We will have stronger brains because the physical part of our brain is working. The movement safari also reminds us that to have energy to move, we also need to eat and get some sleep. Moving, eating, and sleeping are all very important parts of your physical health. Now we're on to the next stop in our trip around the brain zoo, the the moody Arctic. The moody Arctic is in the emotional part of our brain. Here, we're going to talk about all the different moods that we have and all of our feelings and emotions. Some of the emotions that we feel are happiness, sadness, fear, there's disgust, anger, and even surprise. Now, when someone's in a good mood, what emotion is that person feeling? Okay, when someone's in a good mood, they're usually feeling happy. All right, now if someone's in a bad mood, what emotion do you think they're feeling? Okay, when someone's in a bad mood, they could be feeling anger, or they could be feeling sadness, or they might even be feeling fear. There are lots of different emotions that we can feel, and the emotions that we're feeling can affect the mood that we're in, which will affect how we behave. Here are some of the animals that we might find in the moody Arctic. Polar bears and penguins live in the Arctic where it's very cold. Polar bears, they may seem cuddly and warm, but they can also get very angry when other animals try to mess with them. Penguins often spend long periods of time apart from their families, but when they return, they like to give each other hugs to show their feelings. Both penguins and polar bears know how to show their emotions, and we would definitely expect to find them in the moody Arctic. Now, it's important to remember that we're all different, and different people have different emotions. One thing that makes you happy may make someone else afraid. Let's take the polar bear as an example. Some people might see a polar bear and think they're cute and cuddly. They may think this because they've never seen an angry polar bear. Other people may be very afraid of polar bears because they've only seen angry polar bears. It's okay for people to have different emotions as long as you understand it's because we're all unique and we all have different experiences. Since we all have unique emotions, it's important to think about how certain things make you feel. It's perfectly fine to feel all different kinds of emotions. It's hard to be completely happy every second of the day, and it's healthy to feel other emotions. Also remember that emotions can change your mood and how you behave. When you're in a bad mood, it's important to identify what's making you sad or what's making you angry. You don't want to be sad or angry with a friend if they didn't do anything to make you sad or angry. That wouldn't be fair to them. Thinking about our feelings will not only help us understand our emotions, but it will help us to understand other people's feelings too. Being able to identify and understand our emotions will help the emotional parts of our brain stay healthy. Visiting the moody Arctic part of the brain zoo is important to understand our own feelings, can help us build closer friendships, and allow us to have control over how we feel. And more importantly, understanding our feelings will be good for our emotional health, and that makes our brain healthy. We've made it to the final stop in our trip around the brain zoo. Our last stop is the thinking jungle. Thinking is a way that our brain helps us come up with ideas and learn new things. The thinking part of our brain is called the cognitive part. And when we're thinking and learning, that's good for our cognitive health. Let me think. When do you use your thinking brain? When do you use your thinking brain? Well, whenever we learn something new, like riding a bike or learning how to tie our shoes, when you're at school, when you're doing puzzles, when you're reading, you're thinking. We are thinking and learning all the time. In fact, whenever we're awake, we're thinking and learning about the world around us. Using our thinking brains allows us to try new things and be successful in brand new situations. The coolest thing about the brain is that every time we learn something new and use our thinking skills, it changes our brain. So we're always thinking and learning. Our brain is always changing. And more importantly, when our brains can change, that makes our brains healthy. But we aren't the only ones that use our thinking brains. What kind of animals might we see in the thinking jungle? What kind of animals would we see in the thinking jungle? Well, monkeys and gorillas and elephants are very smart animals, and they definitely belong in the thinking jungle. Just like us, monkeys and gorillas can use their thinking brains to solve puzzles, and they even speak in sign language. Elephants have very strong memories. Using our memory also requires us to use our thinking brains, so we would certainly find elephants in the thinking jungle. The thinking jungle is one of the most important parts of the brain zoo. Without the thinking jungle, we'd have a lot of trouble solving problems, remembering things, and learning about our environment. Thinking about the world around us will help us all to have healthy brains and good cognitive health. Wow, can you believe our trip to the Brain Zoo is already over? Let's go over each part of the Brain Zoo that we visited and remember what we learned. First, we stopped at the Friendship Forest, where we met a bunch of different types of birds. We learned how making friends can help us build a support system that will help us from feeling alone, and that friends can help us during hard times. We also learned that friendship helps our brain stay healthy, which helps our social health. Next, we moved on to the movement safari, where we learned that cheetahs can run up to 80 miles an hour. We also learned about how physical activity not only makes our muscles stronger, but it makes our brain stronger too. Moving our body and eating and sleeping will help make our brains healthy, which helps our physical health. Then we moved on to the moody Arctic, where we learned about all the different emotions we can feel. We learned that it's healthy to feel sad sometimes, and that we learned that if we understand our emotions, just like the polar bear, when we see the polar bear and we're afraid of the polar bear, that's because the polar bear's angry, that if we understand our feelings and emotions, we can understand how other people feel too. And more importantly, just like in the Friendship Rainforest and Movement Safari, we learned that understanding our feelings can make our brains healthy, which helps support our emotional health. We then moved on to the thinking jungle with the very smart gorillas and elephants. When we were in the thinking jungle, we learned that when we try something new, our brains change. And we learned that our brain is changing all the time, and that when our brain changes, that makes it healthy. And that was good for our cognitive health. We visited different parts of the Brain Zoo today, but it's important to remember that every single one of us has a unique brain zoo inside of our heads. And while all of our brain zoos have a friendship rainforest, a movement safari, a moody Arctic, and a thinking jungle, each unique brain zoo may have different animals that are better at some things than others. So even if you want to have the same brain zoo as your best friend, you both have different parts of your brain zoos that make you unique and special. So thank you for letting me take you through a spectacular trip to the zoo. I've enjoyed talking to you today about your brain, and I hope you've had some fun and learned something about your brain. Remember, your brain is like a zoo. It has different parts that help you do different things. In the Friendship Rainforest, we learned how making friends can help us build a support system that will prevent us from feeling alone, and that friends can help us during hard times. And that's good for our social health. In the movement safari, we learned about how physical activity not only makes our muscles stronger, but it makes our brain stronger too. And that's good for our physical health. In the Moody Arctic, we learned that understanding our feelings can help us understand other people's feelings too. And that's good for our emotional health. And in the Thinking Jungle, we learned that when we think and learn something new, our brains change. And that's good for our cognitive health. So you see, helping your brain stay healthy is spectacular. Thank you so much for all your help. And remember that brain health is not just spectacular, it's fun too. We'd also like to thank the people at Johns Hopkins University, especially Dr. Ron Daniels. And for this particular story, we'd like to thank Johns Hopkins alumni Alexandra Draymond. The spectacular trip to the zoo concept was made up by Alex when she took a class with me. So Alex, thank you for helping us to understand that our brains can be like a zoo because different parts of a zoo have different kinds of animals and different parts of our brain do different kinds of things.